Let's be real. Most villains are kind of predictable, right? They break the rules because of revenge or they just want to watch the world burn. But what if we could build a villain who's terrifying on a whole other level? A character who doesn't just break our rules, but sees them as completely, totally irrelevant.
And this, right here, gets to the heart of it. A traditional bad guy sees the rules and makes a choice to break them. But the sovereign villain? Oh, they see our rules as something they've just outgrown, like a childhood toy you don't play with anymore. And that is a much more profound, much more unsettling idea. That's what we're going to build today.
So, to put this character together, we've got a 5-part blueprint. We're going to start with their core philosophy, then dive into the unbreakable internal law that guides them. We'll figure out their unique reason for wanting power, lay out their key traits, and then, finally, we'll get to why we can only see them as a monster.
First up, beyond good and evil. The whole foundation of this villain is built on the rubble of our moral framework. They don't just ignore our morality, they operate from a place that's super moral. It's completely above it. To really get them, you first have to understand what they're rejecting. And that's this thing called herd morality. It's basically the system of good versus evil that society comes up with to keep everyone in line, to keep the group safe. It's our morality, designed for the collective, not for the sovereign individual.
And from their perspective, good and evil aren't some cosmic truth. No way. Our entire moral code is just a cage, human-made constructs cooked up by the many to hold down the few who are actually strong.
Okay, so if they're not following our rules, what's guiding them? Is it just pure chaos? Not even close. Their guidance system is something way more formidable, their own sovereign will.
You see, their real danger doesn't come from being unpredictable. It comes from their absolutely unshakable ability to make a promise to themselves and see it through, no matter what. That ironclad internal consistency is so much more terrifying than simple chaos. And this process is what really sets them apart. They make a promise, and in that moment, they become their own lawgiver. And then, they follow that law with absolute devotion. This means they're actually terrifyingly calculable, like a force of nature following its own laws of physics. Not at all like your typical erratic villain.
So, why power? What's the drive? It's not for money or just to dominate people. Their motivation is, well, it's way more creative. This is the power of the artist tyrant.
They're all about what you could call an aesthetic of power. See, for them, power isn't the end game, it's the tool. It's the paintbrush they use to bring their vision to life. A vision born from incredible self-mastery and a powerful drive to create.
That's why we call them the artist tyrant. In their eyes, reality, society, you, me, we're all just raw materials. We're a blank canvas just waiting to be shaped and molded by their own self-created values.
Okay, so we've got the philosophy, but how does this actually play out? What does this villain do? Well, we can see it in the key traits that pop up from this worldview. The traits of the transgressor.
2 traits in particular really define this archetype in practice: a total and complete rejection of pity and this weirdly cheerful kind of fatalism. Let's tackle that first one.
To them, pity isn't a virtue. It's a disease. It's a weakness that infects and drains the strength from everyone it touches. So, when they commit acts we'd call atrocities, it might not come from a place of cruelty, but from a cold, hard refusal to be weakened by the suffering of others.
And this is such a critical distinction to make. Our villain isn't your typical brooding edgelord who's all doom and gloom and just reacts to stuff. Nope. They've got this cheerful fatalism. They are creative, they are proactive. They're not lost in despair.
This cheerful fatalism comes from a really wild idea called eternal recurrence. Basically, they live in such a way that if they had to repeat their entire life over and over again, every single choice, every action, every consequence, forever, they do it gladly. No regrets, not for a single thing they've done.
So, when you put it all together, the supramoral worldview, this unbreakable will, these bizarre traits, you end up with something that we, the herd, can only describe with one word. Let's talk about why we call it a monster. They are just utterly unfettered. They've thrown off all the moral chains that bind the rest of us. For them, the only true prohibition, the only real sin, is weakness. At the end of the day, this kind of villain isn't judged as evil from within our system.
They're judged as a monster because they've stepped outside of our system entirely. Which, it leaves us with a pretty provocative question, doesn't it? Is a monster just someone who's playing by a different and maybe more terrifying set of rules? Now that's something to think about.